Argentina should not exist like this. By almost every economic rule taught in textbooks, Argentina should be rich, stable, and powerful. It has vast fertile land, enormous food exports, energy resources, industrial capacity, and one of the most educated populations in Latin America. In the early 20th century, Argentina was richer per person than Germany, France, and even Japan. Immigrants didn't flee from Argentina, they fled to it. And yet today, Argentina is synonymous with inflation, currency collapse, debt defaults, and economic chaos. Here's the mystery. How did one of the wealthiest countries on earth become the single most studied failure in modern economic history? Economists don't just analyze Argentina, they test ideas on it. Fixed exchange rates, floating currencies, dollar pegs, capital controls, price controls, nationalizations, privatizations, welfare expansion, austerity, IMF bailouts, debt restructurings. Argentina has tried them all, sometimes more than once, sometimes in reverse, sometimes at the same time. That is why Argentina isn't just a country in crisis. It is the world's greatest financial laboratory. And what it reveals about money is deeply uncomfortable because the same forces that destroyed Argentina are now appearing everywhere. But to understand how this experiment began, we need to go back to a time when Argentina looked like the future. At the start of the 20th century, Argentina was an economic miracle. Between 1880 and 1914, Argentina experienced one of the fastest growth rates in the world. It exported beef, wheat, corn, and leather to Europe at massive scale. British capital poured in to build railroads, ports, and banks. Buenos Aires rivaled Paris in architecture, culture, and wealth. By 1913, Argentina ranked among the top 10 richest countries per capita on Earth. This prosperity created a powerful belief, one that would later become dangerous. We are rich by nature. Growth is guaranteed. Unlike industrial nations that had to fight scarcity, Argentina believed abundance was permanent. The economy was built on exports, foreign capital, and confidence, but not resilience. When the global system worked, Argentina thrived. When it broke, Argentina suffered. And the first crack came sooner than anyone expected. World War I disrupted global trade. Then the Great Depression shattered it. In the 1930s, export prices collapsed. Foreign capital dried up. Suddenly Argentina's economy, dependent on external demand, was exposed. The government responded with protectionism and intervention. Imports were restricted. Domestic industries were encouraged. The state grew larger, more involved, more central. This shift wasn't unique. Many countries did the same. But in Argentina, something different happened. Economic management became political identity. Who controlled prices? Who controlled wages? Who controlled money? The economy stopped being just an economic system. It became a battlefield. And into that battlefield stepped the most influential figure in Argentina's modern history. Juan Domingo Perón rose to power in the 1940s by offering a powerful promise. The state will protect you from instability. Perón expanded labor rights, raised wages, nationalized industries, and created a massive welfare system. Workers loved him. Elites feared him. The economy initially boomed. Why? Because Argentina had reserves. It had foreign currencies saved from wartime exports. It had momentum. But beneath the surface, a critical transformation occurred. The government began using money as a political tool. When spending exceeded revenue, deficits were financed by printing peso. Inflation rose, but it was politically tolerated. Price controls were imposed to hide it. Capital controls were introduced to stop money from leaving. This was the first version of a pattern Argentina would repeat endlessly. 1. Spend to create growth. 2. Print money to fund it. 3. Control prices to hide inflation. 4. Restrict capital to stop collapse. At first, it worked. Then the reserves ran out. By the early 1950s, inflation surged, productivity stagnated, exports fell, foreign investors pulled back. Perón was eventually overthrown, but the system he created never disappeared. From this point forward, Argentina entered a cycle that would define its economic identity. Populist expansion, inflation, crisis, austerity, political backlash. Repeat. Every government inherited an economy already weakened by the last one. No reset, no clean slate, only layers of distortion. The peso slowly lost credibility. Argentines adapted by saving in dollars. This wasn't ideological, it was survival. Money stopped being a store of value. It became something to escape. And once a population loses faith in its currency, something irreversible happens. By the 1970s and 1980s, inflation wasn't an occasional problem, it was constant. Prices changed weekly, then daily, then hourly. Businesses stopped planning. Workers demanded wage indexation. The state printed more money to keep up. Debt ballooned. Confidence evaporated. In 1989, Argentina entered hyperinflation. Prices doubled within months. Savings were wiped out. Middle-class wealth vanished. Supermarkets removed price tags because they were meaningless. This wasn't just economic failure, it was social trauma. Hyperinflation teaches a brutal lesson. Money only works if people believe tomorrow will look like today. Once that belief dies, money collapses faster than any system designed to protect it. And in Argentina, believer was gone. After hyperinflation, Argentina made a radical decision. In the 1990s, the government pegged the peso directly to the US dollar. 1 peso equaled $1. The central bank was restrained. Money printing stopped. First, it felt like salvation. Inflation vanished. Confidence returned. Foreign capital poured in. Argentines trusted their currency again. Inflation, but the solution contained a fatal flaw. The peg removed monetary flexibility. Argentina could no longer devalue during downturns. Debt grew in dollars. The economy became dependent on constant inflows of foreign capital. Growth was real but fragile. When global conditions shifted, the system cracked. And when it cracked, it shattered completely. In 2001, Argentina would default on its debt in the largest sovereign default in history. Banks would freeze deposits. Protests would bring down presidents. Savings would be confiscated overnight. The dollar solution would collapse just as violently as hyperinflation did before it. And what followed would turn Argentina into a permanent economic experiment, a place where every financial theory gets tested against reality. By the late 1990s, Argentina looked stable on the surface. Inflation was low, the peso was strong, international institutions praised reforms. But underneath, the system was suffocating. Because the peso was locked to the US dollar, Argentina couldn't devalue to restore competitiveness. Exports became expensive. Imports flooded in. Factories closed. Unemployment rose. To maintain the illusion of stability, the government borrowed heavily. Not in pesos, in dollars. This was the trap. When growth slowed, tax revenue fell. Debt became harder to service. Investors grew nervous. Capital inflows slowed. To defend the peso, interest rates were raised, which crushed the domestic economy even further. This wasn't a sudden collapse. It was a slow suffocation. And then, in 2001, confidence snapped. Banks began losing deposits. Argentines rushed to withdraw dollars. The government responded with desperation. They froze bank accounts. This policy, known as the corralito, limited how much money people could withdraw each week. Overnight, savings became inaccessible. Trust vanished. People weren't protesting abstract economic theory anymore. They were protesting stolen time, stolen labor, stolen futures. Within weeks, Argentina defaulted on its debt. The peso peg collapsed. The currency lost over 70% of its value. 5 presidents cycled through office in 2 weeks. This was the largest sovereign default in human history, and something profound happened. Argentines learned that any financial rule can be broken instantly when the system is under pressure. That lesson never left. After the collapse, Argentina faced a choice. It could rebuild trust slowly through institutional reform, or it could rebuild growth quickly through intervention. It chose speed. The peso was allowed to float and collapse. Exports surged. The government imposed capital controls. Debt was restructured at massive losses to creditors. The economy rebounded. For a moment, Argentina looked like a success story, but the core problem remained untouched. The state still used money as a political tool. As spending increased, deficits returned. When taxes couldn't cover them, the printing press did. Inflation crept back, then surged. To control inflation, the government didn't reduce money creation. It controlled prices. Supermarkets were told what they could charge. Companies were blamed for greed. Export taxes were imposed to keep food cheap domestically. These policies felt compassionate. Their effects were brutal. Price controls created shortages. Export taxes discouraged production. Capital controls scared investment. The economy shrank, but spending didn't. So more money was printed. This is the paradox Argentina perfected. Every solution created the next crisis. By the 2010s, inflation wasn't a shock anymore. It was expected. Contracts were indexed. Salaries were renegotiated constantly. Businesses raised prices preemptively. The government manipulated inflation data to hide reality. This is the most dangerous stage of monetary decay, when everyone adjusts, but no one trusts. Money stopped being a unit of account. It stopped being a store of value. It became a hot potato. Argentines developed survival strategies, saving in US dollars, buying real estate as inflation protection, spending immediately after payday, using black market exchange rates. These weren't criminal behaviors. They were rational responses to a broken system. And here's the critical insight economists learned from Argentina. Inflation isn't just a monetary problem. It's a psychological one. Once people expect prices to rise, their behavior makes it inevitable. For decades, Argentina was treated as an outlier. Bad governance, populism, exceptional failure. But look around today. Massive government deficits, exploding public debt, central banks printing trillions. Political pressure to spend more, rising inflation normalized as temporary. Sound familiar? What Argentina experienced over decades, other countries are now experiencing in compressed time. The pattern is identical. 1. Crisis justifies spending. 2. Spending justifies money creation. 3. Money creation fuels inflation. 4. Inflation justifies intervention. 5. Intervention weakens trust. Argentina teaches us that there is no technical fix for broken trust. Not dollar pegs, not price controls, not bailouts. Money only works when restraint is politically acceptable, and that is increasingly rare. Argentina has defaulted on its sovereign debt 9 times. Its currency has been redenominated multiple times, removing zeros like erasing history. A peso in the 1970s is not the same peso today. Savings from one generation rarely survive to the next. This is the hidden cost, not poverty, but instability. People stop planning long-term. Entrepreneurship shrinks. Talent leaves. And the economy becomes trapped in survival mode. Argentina reveals something uncomfortable. Money is not just printed by central banks. It's granted by belief. Governments can create currency, but only society creates value. Once trust breaks, every policy becomes weaker, harsher, and shorter-lived. Argentina didn't fail because it lacked resources. It failed because it consumed trust faster than it could rebuild it. 3 clear takeaways. Takeaway number 1. Inflation is a political choice. Before, it's an economic one. Every inflationary episode in Argentina began with spending decisions that were politically popular and economically deferred. Takeaway number 2. You can't regulate trust into existence. Price controls, capital controls, and currency pegs delay collapse. They don't prevent it. Takeaway number 3. Once a currency loses credibility, recovery takes generations. Stability isn't restored by growth alone. It requires consistency, something democracies struggle to maintain under pressure. Argentina isn't a warning about mismanagement. It's a warning about incentives. When leaders are rewarded for short-term relief instead of long-term stability, money becomes a weapon, not a tool. The question isn't whether Argentina will stabilize. The real question is, how many other countries are quietly entering their own financial laboratory phase? If this story changed how you think about money, inflation, or economic solutions, then this channel is for you. Like the video to help others find it. Subscribe for deep, historical explanations of how financial systems really work. And comment below. Is Argentina a unique failure or a preview of what's coming next?